Hello, my name is Caitlin Hughes, and today I'm going to be talking about my personal philosophy on early childhood special education. To start out, I'm going to be talking about the whole child approach and how it's going to be addressed in my classroom, and then what my role is in that as well. I'll also be talking about theories and some of the philosophies that we are seeing in early learning. Um, and how I'm going to help each child in each of those uh, different categories. I'll also be discussing how I will have an inclusive classroom and that meets all learners and all of their needs. I will also identify an organization that is going to help me further my learning in early childhood education. And then the last thing I'm going to discuss is how I will uphold my ethical behavior as a professional and also follow my local and state and federal laws. So, um, to begin, I am going to talk about the teaching of the whole child and my role in this. So, according to teaching strategies, the whole child approach to teaching is not only looking at the academics of what the child is learning, but also looking at their interest and their development and social levels as well. And that's according to teachingstrategies.com. Um, and then my role in this is to observe and assess my children to find out where they are to begin with so that I know what their interests are. I'm going to build these relationships so that I can find that out. I'm going to need this information to be able to do any of my lessons or my studies because I don't know what the children are interested in if we are not following that. Um, so some of the theories and philosophies that we see in early learning have varied and they've grown throughout many years. When looking at the different theorists and the different philosophies that we see, I would say that my personal philosophy of education falls kind of in line with Vygotsky's because he believed that children learn best in like a social setting, learning through each other, and that's according to Monroe University. Um, .edu. And so whenever we're looking at that, I feel as if um, I align with that because I tell all of my parents the first thing whenever they come into my classroom, I say that I teach through social interactions. My first goal is to help their child accommodate to being with other children because a lot of times preschool is the first time that they're around children their age. And so we can't go any further with teaching ABCs or colors or anything because the child needs to know how to interact with others socially. So, um, like I said, with Vygotsky, I feel like we are teaching these social interactions and problem solving and how to play with others. And then that way we can have, whenever we're doing assessments, we know that we are, I do a lot of observations with my assessments. And so, in doing those, I'm going to know where they are socially and academically as well. Um, and a lot of times, my observations will turn into anecdotal records. I also use work samples and pictures, and that helps guide my curriculum because we are looking at what the child's interested in. And with these anecdotal records, I can assess where their levels are and how I can go from there for each child's needs. Um, so that kind of brings us to our second point, which is making sure that our inclusive classroom is catering to all of their needs. So, this could be simple as modifying and scaffolding anytime I see that a child is struggling in an activity. So, it could be as simple as maybe somebody doesn't know how to use a regular scissor, so we give them an adaptive scissor. Um, and then we can look at if a child has an IEP, we can make sure that we are looking at their goals whenever we are developing our lesson plans, and we can modify it right there so that we have it in writing, and that way we know what that child needs to be as successful as the other children in that activity. Um, we want to make sure that we're scaffolding and we are including every child in the activity, no matter their level of ability. One of the organizations that we see that can, and I'm actually currently studying into, is called PBIS, which is Positive Behavior Interactions and Supports. It's an organization that provides it's like a continuing education um, for not only early childhood educators, but also educators in all grades because they are teaching not o- it only not only helps them if you're learning these strategies, it helps them in their academics, but a lot of what they focus on is the mental health and behavioral health of each of these children, and that's according to pbis.org. So through PBIS, I am learning new strategies each time that we talk about a new tier because they teach into the tiers. And so um, by learning these tiers, we are able to continue that learning, and they are finding new strategies on how to help these children with their behaviors. And then that also falls in line with my social emotional learning because a lot of um, a lot of the behaviors are stemmed because of social interaction and social emotional development. So, again, I feel like that organization really aligns with my personal philosophy. And the last thing I'm going to talk about is my ethical behavior and to ensure that I am following and upholding those standards to myself as a professional and to ensure that we start out at the very beginning of each year. We will um, get with our administrators as a teaching team, and we will go over what is expected of us in our ethical um, professions, and we also talk about um, uh, how we are going to follow these as a team rather than just each other because in preschool we have not only us but also our aides, and we want to make sure that they are also following that. And so to ensure that, I also keep handouts and I have a whole pamphlet in my classroom so that even if we have a substitute that day, that they can also follow those teaching ethics. So I'm also going to be following my local and federal state laws. Um, and then we also get copies of those each year to make sure that we are following those standards, and especially the state ones because we did just recently get a new state standard for early childhood education in West Virginia. So we have been getting one of those, a copy of that each year and even each semester, so that we are making sure we are following that new instituted law. So in conclusion, I've talked today about my philosophy on early childhood special education and how it kind of aligns with Vygotsky's beliefs about social interactions and teaching each other through play. I've also talked about the whole child approach and my role and how crucial it is. I've discussed how I'm going to have an inclusive classroom and how I'm going to meet the needs to all of the children in my classroom, no matter what level they are. I've also discussed PBIS and how it's going to help me further my strategies with behaviors and social emotional learning. I've also talked about how I can continue to uphold my ethical behavior and make sure that I am staying professional and following these teacher ethics, um, not only in my school, but also throughout the whole state and the country. Also, making sure that I'm following the state and federal laws as well. I feel very strongly about my philosophy, and I've thought this for a few years. My social emotional learning is very important to me, and I want to make sure that all children are at the level they need to before they go to kindergarten. I feel like we set them up for kindergarten to learn their academics. Um, so I look forward to building more on these and strengthening them and maybe even add in some other things into my philosophy throughout this program. So, thank you.